The best way to build a community is to keep a big picture in mind and then go for small wins. Because that's how relationships are built. It's one interaction at a time. First of all, what's your big picture? This is the first and most important question that you need to have about your community. And it's an ever-evolving set of questions. But you need to start with why you're starting a community. You can't just say what tool. You can't just say, well, Quora is big, we need a Quora community. No, Quora is building their own community. You've got to say, why are we there? What's the purpose? And are our people there? And is that a more efficient way to get to them? So the fundamental human truth is that you're trying to connect people. All of the various tools that we have allow you to connect with people in different ways. But why is the fundamental? So communities are defined by shared interest, and there's so many different kinds of communities, and not all of them last forever. So you've got communities that overthrow governments, all right? You've got communities of people who are stricken with Bieber fever. All right. You've got communities who share user-generated content, and you even have very temporary communities that can form around an article. All right. So I think that not every community is permanent. All right. People can come together and get something done. And secondly, the community can be an entity that can exist outside of the individual members. There's this entity. There's the spirit that sustains it. So brands can play too, and you'll see a brand there, Columbia BBL. All right, this is an MBA student at UCT. It gave me a shock. I'd just kind of given a whole lecture on the executive MBA on social media and how important it was for business, and this guy came up to me, Gijs, and he said, oh, definitely, I'm going to start applying this in my business. And I said, fantastic, Gijs, what's your business? And he said, we manufacture bricks. Jeez, I don't know, Gijs, this one's for you. And anyway, brick makers tend to be very practical guys. So anyway, he went to Gumtree, right? Because we talk about all the glamorous ones, and he kind of went straight for the numbers. He was like, oh, so using Gumtree in South Africa. And he came back, honestly, I'm not kidding, he came back 2 weeks later, which was when my next session was with the class, and he'd moved over R500,000 worth of bricks using Gumtree. So I said to him, Gijs, how the hell did you engage people on bricks? And he said, it's not about the bricks, Dad. He said, it's about the lifestyle. So he was engaging with architects and around green living and sustainability, stuff that people actually care about. All right? And then the bricks were just an enabler in the conversation. All right. So I asked another really smart community builder, Sam Wilson, whether she could help me. She's the lifestyle editor at 24.com, and I think they've got some of the most engaged communities in media that I've seen, and definitely among the most engaged in the country. And here's what she said. So I said, can I interview you? And she said, of course. She said, here's her first tip. Work with a tipping point goal in mind. The community taking over your job, so you're steering, not initiating. Your job is successful when people start talking to each other. All right, so then I said, right, that's excellent. What's more important, if either content or conversation for you? And she said, neither. The skill to develop with online editors is the ability to plate the two together into an almost seamless offering. And she's told me this before. She says, in print, you write to completion. In other words, when you put that full stop, people are clear that you're the authority and the expert. But online, you've got to almost purposely leave a question open at the end. You've got to leave or create some space for debate. So writing is very different when you're talking about an interactive medium. Second tip from Sam. 2, work out how much of yourself you're prepared to share, then take a deep breath and go a step further. You've got to be in the community. And I find this very scary. And I said to her, does it need to be your own personality or do personas work? Because this is the big question for brands. And she said, I think personas work if that person is the brand, like Two Oceans vibe, but to represent another brand, not sure, do you know of an example? And at this point, RB Jacobs pulled in and said, who are you going to call? RB Jacobs, who's the FNB persona, all right? So he's basically saying, I'm a persona and it works, all right? And they've defined the tone and it's fun and it works. So I'm just going to give you some kind of ninja tactics to organize your communities, and I've tried to make them pretty practical. This is the how. So number one, you've got to be curious. The questions are far more than the answer, far more worthwhile and far more important than the answers in communities. So you can have one question that can animate a community for years, but an answer is basically done. That's the end of the story. So you never know what your community can reveal for you. Two, you've got to be useful. All right, so you can see this graph compares businesses' expectations of why consumers engage with them on social sites compared with consumers' rankings of why they engage with brands on social sites. And you can see that brands seem to be, in this case, more kind of touchy-feely than the consumers are. So the brands are saying, well, we think that people want to be in a community. And people are saying, no, I want a discount. So you've got to be useful. You've got to know why you're there. All right? And you've got to give people a reason to be part of the community. You've got to find your own voice. This is critically important. You know, this is all about having character. You know, you can't be too scared to engage and express yourself in a way that actually helps people realize that there is a human being. That kind of staid corporate monotone doesn't win anyone over. And you've got to be agile. All right? Agility in this sense, if you're working in a company, is not easily done. Like, we can point fingers and say, well, my brand isn't as agile as Nando's is, for example, in this case, and they're not the only ones. But the thing is that there's a lot of hard work that needs to be done behind the scenes to enable the kind of freedoms that the ad agency has for this. By the way, viral content tends to be the stuff that's really quick responses from a brand. So people say, like, yo, you know, you can't really predict viral. The surest thing that I've seen as a predictor of viral is to release relevant commentary on a topical issue into a community as a brand. All right. Next, you've got to make it real. All right. So just like Heavy Chef has done here, there's a little other example. This is Cape Town's newest one, a gathering for gamers called 2Up Gamers. But I've always found that leaving communities online isn't enough. I think that people want real benefit for being part of a community, and I think that there's something about being high touch and seeing people face to face that I don't think that the internet will ever replace. So you can help people connect with each other, and you can recruit the interested parties in the virtual space, but then I still think that there's huge value in events. And certainly I think it's a great way to galvanize the community. All right. Next is be proactive. All right. And I'd say that the other thing is you can't just be there. Like, a lot of people start a blog, or they start a Facebook page, or they can, you know, we've launched our Twitter account, and they wonder why there's no activity. And the point is, you've got to actively push stuff out there. You know, you've got to seed ideas into all the different communities. So you've got to go out to LinkedIn, and you've got to frame it for a professional audience. You maybe got to upload via SlideShare simple things that people don't do, like putting it on all their email signatures so that people can click through. Is it on your business cards? All of those things. You've got to be proactive. You've got to feed stuff. And this is where you get those community managers that live on their phone, always interacting with people. If people respond to you, you've got to acknowledge and reward them for their interaction. So you've got to stoke the flames constantly. So keep it going. And then lastly, weeding. There's no formula to success in online communities. Each one develops its own character based on who comes there. The weeding activity says we take lots of experiments, we try different kinds of content, we develop new processes, but when we see they're not working, we ruthlessly weed that stuff out because it takes our time and energy and resources. And then lastly, set goals and measure, because what you can't measure, you can't manage. And what you measure is not hits and page views and that kind of stuff. I don't think that that's useful. I think it's tangible outcomes like return on investment, number of people who've rocked up, people who've inquired. It's real stuff that has meaning. Okay. So just in conclusion, some very, very practical tips. Red Bull's brilliant. They understand that content isn't king, it's damn important, but content provides something that people can discuss. And I think Red Bull's a brand that's enabled a community. All right. Very practical tip, go mobile. So I did some consulting with Media24, and we looked at which of the magazine brands have done really well online. Huisgenoot is leaps and bounds ahead of all the others. And they've got like hundreds of thousands of fans interacting on everything on Facebook. And when they got a new brand manager, they had a formula and they stuck to it. But when they got a new person managing their social media, suddenly the growth kind of slowed down. And they were saying that this person's doing the exact same thing, same number of posts, same content style, everything. What's going on? The insight that we learned was that this person wasn't updating via their mobile phone. So in other words, the old person would be, say, sitting in front of TV watching Idols, and then you'd say, check this guy. You know? It was real time, and then people knew where to go to pick up the conversation. That 10-minute delay, that not a real-time response, it made the difference between an engaged and interactive community and a kind of slightly stale, tired one. All right, so suddenly going mobile made a huge difference. And by the way, I mean, our labs, the screenshot that I've got up there, this is a small group of people that have reached millions through mobile counseling and support services, and it's just through instant messaging. All right, so instant messaging is every bit as social and a phenomenal way to build communities. All right, celebrate today. There's always something to celebrate. All right, Google knows this. All right, it's always great content. You know, talk about the news. What's happening today? It's a good way to keep a brand fresh. I don't like these kind of planned month in advance content strategies for brands. You know, make sure that you're going to be able to respond to something or raise an important issue and deal with it. For example, here's Pick n Pay saying, you know, we don't support the Protection of Information Bill. When to tweet, all right, when to engage is really important. I think consistency is very important. You need to be reliable. If you're going to build a community, people need to know that it's every week or every month. And it doesn't matter if it's, you know, more or less than that, but just be reliable. And the other thing is certain times are more engaging than other times. So this is interesting. For most of the world, it seems to be kind of 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday or a Monday is the best time to interact on social media. In South Africa, it's kind of 6 to 9 p.m. is when most people are online engaging on Twitter. So the rest of the world, the most active time is 9:30 a.m. Why do you think? What's going on at 9:30 a.m.? Right? Pulled into work, clapped down my coffee, you know, and I'm just going to see what's happening on Facebook and Twitter. All right? In South Africa, all right, people have we've got high bandwidth costs. A lot of companies restrict access to social networks at work, so people are engaging. By the way, they don't stop engaging at work. They just do it less. They're just on their phones. But they come home and then they're parking in front of TV and they're discussing the latest news event because, yes, traditional media can create ad hoc communities, the rugby game or the TV show or whatever else. But here's the thing, if you're tweeting heavy links and video and that kind of stuff, in the evening, people are on their phones, they're not going to be able to see that content. So in the daytime, lunchtime, videos, pictures tend to work. In the evenings, plain text tends to work better. All right? Simple little tips. All right? Invite participation directly. Photos, for example, are the most popular type of content on Facebook pages, but brands waste the opportunity, and individuals. You upload a photo and you just say, here's the photo. Do you know that Facebook's Edge rank penalizes you every time you upload content that people don't engage with? It means that you get seen by less and less people the more content you upload that people don't interact with. So a simple way around this is just asking people questions when you upload stuff. Second is give it a hashtag. This is really important. You know, you get ad hoc communities that form around a hashtag. This is the Sleek Geek Challenge that's been going on. And by the way, you can see Virgin Active got involved there. Just a group of people that decided to get together to encourage each other online to lose weight. All right. And then finally, just some lessons from what is considered the most engaged Facebook page in the world right now, according to Social Bakers. Lessons from the Jesus Daily. First lesson, bottom left, to those who have shall be given more. It's so true online. And the more fans you have, the more fans you're going to get. The bigger your community, the more attractive it's going to seem. Which means that in the beginning you have to hustle 3 times as hard. It means that you've got to go for you've got to fight for inches in the beginning. Because that's where you build momentum. And let people express their views safely, all right? So kind of if you look at those pictures, they're asking people, what do you see here? You know, you can't really go wrong with that, you know? Like another classic question is like, what's your favorite color, you know? You can't go wrong either way, and then people can open up debates. You've got to offer variety, so make it different. Multimedia, appeal to different audiences, and also push up your page rank, and keep it fresh, right? So every day, all right? So in conclusion, fundamentally communities are about trust as the fundament of relationships. If your company doesn't have a high quality product or service, if your community doesn't have something that people actually care about at the heart of it, if it's not founded on what your community considers good practices, you're not going to build trust. And that's basically about as real as it gets.